YouTube, and Ladles and Jelly Spoons. Welcome to Truth, Love, and Peace, episode 45 with Sean Peterson. Thank you for joining me, Sean.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being here.
Welcome to Truth, Love, and Peace. Sorry, we're kind of camera's not quite framed up right. That's always my phone would play with some stuff. See, I can do it two ways. I can press with this over here.
Oh, wow, look at you.
Ta-da! Look at that. That's way too much on my back. We don't need any of that. So, we are here, deep underground in a hobbit hole somewhere. Speaking of hobbit holes, you need to be able to see my bare feet because we're at the beach.
Holes inside of holes inside of holes.
There you go. Last time we were here, Russell didn't tell us that there were lights in this room. So it was very dark, but look at that.
We have at least one more. It's still, we still like to keep it pretty dark, but
it's perfect. It's perfect.
It looks the same in here no matter when you're in here. That's kind of what we want,
Well, it's awesome. I wish I had a cave. I don't have a cave. My cave sits out in the sun and bakes. It's not nearly as nice.
I was jealous of this place for many, many, many years before I got the opportunity to actually be here. So I feel very, fortunate and honored that Russell was, kind enough to let me share his space. And,
hell yeah.
I love it here. Love it here.
It's me too. I love the air conditioner. After being outside, the heat is coming back faster than I want it to. It's ridiculous. I know it's June now, but still, where did winter go?
I don't know, man. I miss those middle seasons. We didn't really have it this year. That spring thing that other people have. We didn't have it.
None of that.
No. I don't know. I've gotten into gardening. It's kind of weird the last couple of years.
Like get dirty and stuff?
Straight up, barefoot. I'm barefoot out just digging in the dirt.
Russell's corrupted you.
I love it. Perhaps. I'll take it, though. I'll take it, man.
So what do you grow? What do you garden?
Oh, gosh, man. Right now, it's just simple. It's not like we're not farming or anything. We just have some cucumbers and tomatoes and things like that. And we've got some herbs and flowers up front, things like that. But my girlfriend, her mother is like the gardener. Like they have acres of land. It's all planted. She works hours a day in her garden, produces food for 35 quart bags of green beans are what we took home the other day.
Poundage-wise, what does that come out to?
I have no idea.
10, 15 pounds probably?
At least. No, way more than that. I had a very, very difficult time picking up the bag, and I can, it was we're talking I'd probably say 60, 70 pounds worth. Yeah. And then she's got
I forgot
exponentially more than that.
It's flowing.
Yeah, that's just the green beans, so it's and I'm inspired by that. The whole idea of growing your own food, man. that whole idea is, I'm very, very, very into that idea.
Yeah.
So
I'm
starting small. I'm trying to just. I've never made shit grow before, so just making something fucking grow is beautiful. We had some cucumbers last year, and they didn't do well. We kind of learned from our mistakes. We're trying to do better this year in terms of spacing them out and things like that. But just watching her bring in literally we've got a year's worth of green beans that this woman produced in her yard.
Isn't it amazing how not easy that is, though?
Literally, she'll the work. We went out there the other day, and just that portion that we got to keep, we had to snap.
Yeah.
We blanched them, which I learned is boiling hard for a few minutes, and then ice water, and then you individually bag them in Ziploc bags. So we do it all by hand. It's sitting there and snapping the beans, as a family, communicating, talking, and hanging out, and it's just beautiful.
So no app for this.
There's no app for it. There's
no
app
phones
for it.
Involved. No computers.
There's a few nifty little gadgets.
Actually talking to human beings.
Getting
dirty.
Beings. It was great.
This still happens?
It still happens.
Oh my god.
It still happens. It's.
Who are you, Peter Pan?
I've been very inspired by it. I'll just say that. I've actually been going out and just digging up parts of the yard and planting things and trying to get them to grow. And it's just.
I'm jealous. I can't grow crap.
I've never been able to. But I'm 40, almost 44 years old. How old are you?
38.
So you've got a few years. You've got a few years to figure it out. I'm just now. I've tried gardens before. It's not like this is the first time. I've tried it before, and I've killed a lot of things. So I'll go with it.
Yeah, I killed everything out at my place. There's just because there's no shade, there's so much sun, everything dead. We grow sandspurs like nobody's business.
Yeah, we got a lot of those, man. I was surprised. We thought our soil was crap, just total crap. And as soon as I broke it into it, it was like just dark and earthworms. So
Well, it's perfect.
Oh yeah. So
Nice.
we got very lucky in that respect. So I can't take all the credit for actually getting things to grow. It's I haven't had to revive our soil or anything like that. It's been pretty spot on since we started. But yeah, so that's something I've been kind of into lately. That whole idea is just, I don't know. I think people that do that. I've never been a hunter, but that concept of killing something and then having this freezer full of meat, because I'm not a vegetarian. I just think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
providing food for yourself is really great.
Yeah, being a producer, and cutting out all the middlemen. My first thought is always, think of how much gas we could save if we didn't ship groceries all over the place.
Sure.
So
I don't know how much. I wonder sometimes, because we've spent money to make it happen. I don't know how much money we'll save in the long run. I'm sure we will in the long run, but just getting something going, you can do a lot of it for free, but you have to buy some things, and so it's until you can really my girlfriend's mother, what she produces, that's completely worth the money she spends, because she's got seeds that she saves and she turns over and things like that. So that's pretty amazing. But yeah, that whole idea of just localizing to the most extreme, making your own food, I dig that.
Me too. I'm a big fan. Big fan. I love all the rooftop gardens and the urban gardening that you're starting to see. There's some really cool programs out there. I need to find out who's doing that here in Pensacola. Those would be some fun people to talk to.
I can
for sure.
I know at least one person who manages some of the community gardens.
Oh, please,
Mr. Rick Kendall.
Rick Kendall.
He's watching. Hey.
Well, sooner or later,
anyway,
we'll let him know.
He'll, but he's helped maintain and actually does a lot of the hard work. The actual work.
Yeah, the dirty part, the getting dirty part.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
So, but there are a few of those around here. So I'm not sure which ones he maintains, but yeah, that whole idea of we have a friend who wanted to garden, and their landlord was not cool with them tearing up a manicured lawn, which is unfortunate, because manicured lawns are so just
waste of water and other things.
There's so many reasons against having a manicured lawn. But if you're renting a home from somebody, and we're fortunate that the person we rent from is
cool.
Great, please plant things. That's great.
Yeah.
And hopefully she'll get some of the harvest. But
sharing is caring.
Exactly. But they've ended up, because of that situation, they've ended up finding someone who's got a lot of land, who wants to literally have a community garden with them. So it's not open to the public community garden, but they've actually got somewhat of a co-op where several people are planting and working it.
That's the way to go.
And it's rather large, and I'm sure it'll end up. I'm again amazed at what a few acres of land, what that can produce.
Yeah.
And if you just put in the time, my little plots take I probably spend half an hour, maybe 45 minutes a day, just watering, pruning, things like that. But I'm going to get food out of it. So
that's not the only thing you get out of it. There are a lot of people, a lot of scientists that are doing the research right now to back up the initial evidence that says being hands-on in a garden and being in close contact with nature is actually beneficial for your digestive system.
I can't imagine it not being good for everything.
Yeah.
I think anything that's good for your general state of mind. If you start up here, it kind of floods down.
Indeed.
And
Indeed. They say just the microorganisms in the dirt that become part of your microbiome is healthy for you.
The whole concept of earthing.
Yeah. As crazy as it sounds.
I'm barefoot most of the time. I'm outside, and I just I don't know how much I'm into all of that, but at the same time, I'm into all that.
I'm well convinced of how little we know. And so, like you said, things that make me feel good and make me happy, even if that's just the placebo effect,
I don't care.
I'm okay with it.
At this point in my life, I don't care. I really don't. I don't break things down as much as I used to, and I don't know if that's good or bad, but I've really kind of learned to on instinct, if something really just feels right, in making music, I don't break things down to the point of like, is this the right or wrong thing to do? I really go on more of like, does this bring me joy? Does this make me happy?
Is it fun?
And I think everything in life kind of has to be that way. Like, you kind of have to, like, is this, it's something as simple as taking your shoes off when you walk outside. Does that make you just that much happier? Like, I like getting dirty. It's kind of been fun just to get fucking dirty.
Yeah. When's the last time somebody made a mud pie, right? Like, that was Saturday entertainment for years when I was a kid. I don't remember the last time I made a mud pie.
A fucking sprinkler or a hose and a couple dudes. That's all you needed. That's all you needed. So it's that same kind of simple joy of like, it's just, I'm not supposed to be dirty, but I'm dirty.
But why not? We should.
I know, that's exactly the thing, though. It's like you're just kind of fighting
such a sterile community. The culture is becoming really sterilized now. That's a big problem.
I've learned not to mind having a little dirt under my fingernails.
Yeah.
Doesn't bother me to,
Not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world.
It'll be okay.
It'll be just fine. In fact,
it'll
be quite
some
a bit
minerals,
better.
right there.
I've got some grit in my mouth unintentionally.
So you mentioned music, so let's double back to we met through music, and I couldn't recall earlier if it was you were playing with. It was either Tyler Mack or Johnny Hart.
It was
in the early.
It was Fatty Waters.
Oh, that's right. It was Fatty Waters at the time.
The two of those gentlemen, myself and Justin Headley.
And Headley on Zorak.
Yep.
That's right, man. And that was, we were in the Dome, I think, the first time I ran y'all's sound, which was a beautiful time.
Yeah.
But that's how we met, and as a bass player. But that's not the only thing you do.
No, but that's my thing.
Catch people up real quick. Not only are you an audio engineer, but you were a bass player for Fatty Waters at the time. You play bass for a couple of different bands. Have played for several different bands over the course of your career.
Yeah.
Then let's see. Work heavily in the music industry here in Pensacola through a couple of different institutions. One of which is your own creation, if I'm not mistaken. The sound. Pensacola Sound Production.
Audio Documentation. Pensacola Audio Documentation.
Yeah. So flesh out some of the fun parts of that resume, or the parts that you are excited about talking about these days.
Wow.
Just so people can catch up with you.
Okay. Yeah, that's...
for all you folks that haven't known Sean for years.
It's kind of a... Pensacola Audio Documentation is a recording studio. It's this place here. It is, I guess more a concept. I do, I record bands.
But you also go out and record fun stuff too, because I've seen some of your videos where you're recording ambient sounds all over the place.
Yeah,
which looks tons of fun.
Yeah,
but that gives you a big library to do all kinds of stuff. So what are you doing with all that stuff?
I'm trying right now. I've started, but I've kind of fallen off the wagon. I need to get back on actually with a project I'm calling Pensacola Sounds, which I've just been documenting just places in Pensacola. Certain spots, certain events. We have a Saturday market here on Palafox Street. I recorded 20 minutes of just right in the middle of that. A couple of our fountains here in town, a couple, the port of Pensacola, the destruction of one of our old elementary schools. I got to capture that because it's close to my house, and I saw them doing it, so I ran down and recorded that. But that whole idea of just, we're surrounded by sound constantly, and it's only our minds that's separated into music and speech and the air conditioner and the train passing by, but in reality, it's all just the same thing. And so I've just been, that whole idea just fascinates me of wherever you are, kind of just being there sonically. And so I've been wanting to document that. So I've been doing that. That kind of stemmed from, I didn't have a field recorder, kind of like what you have, a little Zoom field recorder. I didn't own anything like that. I started kind of working with some video producers doing like holding a boom mic. and I bought a field recorder to do that with, and I realized I had a field recorder. And so it started stemming from that. You know, I started taking it places and putting headphones on and just kind of listening. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those things that, you know, you kind of reacquaint yourself with the original intent. You know, when you create sounds, it all stems from listening to things. So it's just one of those cyclical things. You know, you kind of find a way to get back to the why. Mm-hmm. And listening to just anything kind of helps me just ground. And so I've been digging that, and I'm trying to there's a certain way I want to do it. Right now, technically, I'm limited. So I've been not wanting to record certain things because there's a way I want to do it. I just don't have the means to do it. It's just a matter of spending money that I don't have. So I'm just kind of like, you know, putting some pennies aside, and the things that I want to record, the things that I want to do will be there. We will all, you know, Pensacola will be here. We're here. As long as I'm here, the idea will be there. So,
nice.
You know, other people will do it. Field recording's something that happens all over the world. People love capturing the ambience of certain spaces. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of hope to do that with that project. Literally, it's just kind of like, especially people that are from here, like to be able to like, okay, here's the Palafox Market, or here's what it's like to be here in this space at this time. You know, it's just it's like a picture, an audio picture.
Well, and more, I was just thinking how cool it would be to take some of that and turn it into bedding tracks for audio, for some of the stuff that I do.
Sure.
You know, the thought from that being that it's so hard to find responsibly produced music and make sure artists are being taken care of online, that having an option like that would be pretty neat. My first thought, but yeah, then of course it's the audiophiles. I had the thought of me sitting around going, and this is a fountain from Germany, and this is a fountain from Pensacola. This is New Orleans.
It's silly, but I do that. Like I follow people like on SoundCloud that field recording. I'll find them, you know, more than I listen to music these days. I'll listen to, you know, this is, you know, the middle of this city, you know, during rush hour. And
that's life, man. That's real stuff.
It's just super interesting.
Have you ever seen that they built this organ into a bulkhead, into a seawall? You know what I'm talking about? With the waves, the water in the... That is one of the coolest
I've had some talks with Brooks Hubbard about that. He's had some like water foam type ideas with involving that. But that whole idea of just the sounds that occur, whether they're nature or not, like I'm not so concerned with that. Like I don't mind if I'm listening to a bird or something natural and something, you know, man-made occurs in the background. I was recording these frogs at Everman, our grocery store here in town. There's these deep ditches that surround that grocery store that after a lot of rain will get full, and in the spring and summer they'll just...
Tadpole ponds.
And they'll just become this loud symphony of frogs. And so I was recording it one night, and constantly in the background there's the traffic going by. And then a train way off in the background, which is probably the tracks that run actually right behind here. And at first I was like, fuck. Nature thing and all this going on. And then I stopped and went, there it is. That is that. Right. That is, at that time.
That's what happened.
That is there.
Yeah.
That is, you know, and, you know, kind of like, it's like almost like a journalistic kind of approach.
Yep.
You know? That's what initially led me to name my whole thing Pensacola Audio Documentation. The fact of when you record, especially with music, there's a big differentiation. God, I can't even say that word. Big difference between
differentiation.
There you go. Producing music and recording music. I think you can record a sound and really manipulate it afterwards, or you can kind of document it as it is. I don't have a problem with either one, and I really kind of engage in both quite a bit. But that whole idea of recording something as it is, and really trying not to do anything after that, other than you know, when it comes to music, maybe balancing it in a certain way, but really not getting in the way of what it actually is. I think that's something that gets kind of lost these days. We really expect things to be very perfect,
right?
And they're often not, and that's the thing that really, again, especially musically for me. You think about a drummer who has a certain way that they approach time, the way that they will play. We have a habit these days of ironing that out and lining it up so that it's a little more on the grid. Whereas that's his thing, that's his thing. That's what he does. I think a lot of bands who are making music these days aren't ready. They're just not ready. They haven't put in the time to become what they're going to be before they try to really. God, I know a lot of guys that's like one of the first things they do is make a record. And I don't know how many bands I was in and how long I played music before I made a record. You know what I mean? I mean, we were trying to do that, but we really it used to be expensive. It used to be harder to find somebody who had the gear that could do it.
Right.
The first band I was in that recorded, we found a guy who had a mixing board and a cassette deck. And he was able to plug us all in and record us at the same time to his cassette deck. And that was great, Like he had 24 channels and mic'd everything. And it was pretty phenomenal for us, And then somebody who could, multi-track after that was like, wow, that's phenomenal. And then these days kids are immediately going into recording to computers and being able to fix all their shit and it being right. And so that's kind of an expected thing in a lot of circles of music that I think is
it's so cheap though.
I don't know, I think it's one of those super fine lines and super gray areas.
You think so?
It depends on the intent. It really does.
Here's my standpoint.
Yeah.
My take on the whole thing is, in the approach to podcasting, just to make it relevant, to make the analogy, is that like you were saying, the documentation of history, like you're capturing an event, for better or for worse, this is what happened. This is an accurate portrayal of the event. And that's one of the reasons that I don't edit anything. So for better or worse, we had this big, long conversation that was a natural conversation. And I think that's something that when you get into the digital age, it becomes easier and easier to remove yourself from what actually happened and try and manipulate what actually happened into what you want it to be. And that gets problematic on a lot of levels, all the way into the reason that amplifiers and vinyl are really good is because you can still feel all the stuff that nobody can hear anyway, which is a whole other realm of live interactions, I think. But that's kind of my 2 cents on that. I'd rather have it real, historically accurate, unabridged, unedited. Because I think being able to do it live is much more difficult than being able to pull it off in post.
I have a constant internal struggle with that.
Yeah.
Like constant. I am really, in the end, an ends justifies the means kind of guy, creatively. I think I've known people who have heavily employed things like auto-tune and heavily employed things like, drawing MIDI in with a mouse and things that we would consider unmusical to make beautiful music, because that was their process. They couldn't sing, they couldn't do these things, but they employed these processes to make them work. I know people that use them to make up for musical deficiencies in a way that supports their ego.
Yeah.
That to me is the line, and it's a very gray area. I don't know how you place a rating on it. Like, this is rated R, this is PG, this one's okay, this one's not. Like how any of us does it overall. I guess it's for each individual to go, that's within my realm of okay, or that's not. I love hip hop. I love sampling. I love electronic music that's on a very strict grid that doesn't have any play with the rhythm or time. I love 5 guys playing together that move all over the place at the same time, though. So I don't know where the right and wrong is. I have no idea where.
Well, right and wrong is tricky.
Well,
my opinion.
and again, I guess that's really, I know there is no,
but
there is no right or wrong. You can't say one is correct and one is not. But as far as what you will accept and what you won't, I don't know. There's things that I hear that will have no more of those things than something I like, but I don't like it over here.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say exactly why when you want to quantify it and break it down, but.
And there are always exceptions, for sure.
Sure.
But the whole argument of there'll never be another Freddie Mercury because of the way music is now. Like, I think there will definitely be another Freddie Mercury. Will he be celebrated the same way that Freddie Mercury and Queen was celebrated? Maybe not.
Sooner or later, maybe.
Yeah, and then just what does that look like? And is it necessarily a bad thing? And what would people like Freddie Mercury that have this ridiculous talent that people put so much effort in post to try and replicate, what would he say about it? I'm fascinated by all of those things because there is no solution. It's always going to keep going forward. We're not going backwards anytime soon.
And you give those guys, you think of the people, and of course talent is only worth as much as it's cultivated.
Sure.
So you take the people like the Freddie Mercurys, the Jimi Hendrixes of the world. There's people that have that talent who, it's often just overlooked how much time they must have spent figuring that shit out.
Yeah.
Like figuring that shit out. Like, that's a lot of fucking time. So there's people,
childhoods in most cases.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, a lot of
entire
fucked up childhoods. Like just figuring that shit out, locked in a room, figuring that shit out, one little step at a time.
Yeah.
There's people doing it nowadays, but I mean, they're not. I don't know that they're celebrated the same way. The amount of information that we have these days, the amount of recorded music, the amount of things that you can find at the click. I mean, there was there were a lot of records made in the 50s, 60s, 70s. There were a lot of people, independent people making records in small studios and things like that, but not like there is today.
Just cranking.
Not like there is today. Not like when you have people just the amount of music that comes out of Pensacola and Mobile, from bedroom studios to Dolphin Street Sounds type places, and everywhere in between. I mean, interface and a laptop computer that are making tremendously great music, and making it and disseminating it throughout the world. And so it's like you can really. There's a lot of bullshit. There's a lot of bullshit out there.
So much bullshit.
But the ability to make something and throw it out there, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. I love technology for that reason. For this reason. That if you have an idea, you can put it out there, and hopefully people will find it. Exactly. Yeah. Hopefully, you have to still do a lot of fucking work.
Yep.
But hopefully people will find it.
Hopefully. I gotta press this button real quick. Long-time listeners know what that's about. It's just a reset for the YouTube. But hopefully people will find it. And it's one of the things that kind of fascinates me about where YouTube's going. I saw somebody say, one of the music industry people, which that always raises a red flag for me. Like, these people don't deserve to talk in most cases, because I think the industry is part of the problem. But that's on its way out, and everybody meant well in the beginning, and blah, 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 blah. Sometimes my opinions should be kept to myself. Sometimes I just like to rant.
For sure, man.
But I wonder how, we all know artists get screwed by the industry on a regular basis. That's not really an opinion. That's a fact these days. Spotify is not real nice to artists. And so one of the industry execs said that YouTube is the worst friend of an artist. And from a YouTube paying people standpoint, I can see where he's coming from. But from an exposure standpoint, with ownership attached to it, I can see how he's wrong. So now that plays a lot differently for somebody who puts a free podcast out versus somebody who's making music. But I kind of get it from a comedy standpoint. But I'm curious what your thoughts are on how social media, as valuable as it is to help spread the word, do you see any big drawbacks in it?
I guess it depends on who you are and where you are in the hierarchy of things.
Yeah.
If you've got
Well,
millions and
everybody
millions
can-
of dollars, and you have the spending habits of somebody who has millions and millions of dollars, and all of a sudden your income stream has fallen a lot, then I would imagine that you would be upset with the system. If you are an independent musician, an independent creative person, an independent person who is doing journalistic type things, who is trying to disseminate information, you can do it in a lot of ways and hopefully monetize it. I don't think there's a problem with monetizing things. I don't think there's a problem with making a living on things that you do. I really don't. I think a lot of the punk rock DIY mentality is a lot of people think that it's devoid of like you're supposed to be completely anti-capitalist, and I'm not necessarily saying that you have to be capitalistic about it, but there's something to be said about employing your efforts in your craft to feed yourself.
Yeah.
And it all, I guess it all depends on what your goals are. Musicians these days don't really. I guess you kind of still have the opportunity to become a made person and have like all this money and success, but more than that, I think that there's more of an opportunity to find that area of not having to do that, or not having to have that happen for you to exist.
Yeah.
YouTube might be bad, but I know a lot of people who receive income via YouTube.
Yeah.
Because of viewership. Is somebody else taking a cut? Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. Did I create that infrastructure for that to exist? Fuck no, I didn't. Was it expensive to occur? I'm sure it was. Spotify is, I don't like it. I use it more recently than I ever have before because people send me Spotify playlists for gigs. Like, here are tunes to learn in the form of a Spotify playlist. Yeah. And that's kind of what got me on it. And
I'm removed from Spotify. I don't really know much about it.
I was in a band that I was the guy who uploaded all our shit online and got the quarterly reports and so forth.
Oh, I don't look at any of that crap.
I got to see the numbers, basically what our iTunes numbers were versus these numbers versus our Spotify numbers.
I don't have any of those, so I don't know.
I got to see that firsthand, and I'll tell you, it was insulting. It was definitely kind of funny. Like, why would you even give me anything? Then give me thousandths of a penny.
Yeah, like, why waste the paper?
Why waste the paper? It's really like just looking at it kind of deflated me.
One of the values I find, though, to double back to where we were and avoid how embarrassing numbers can be, is the ownership. When we were talking earlier about having the history of it, and so even though it may not be the next big thing, and you may not become a made musician because of it, it's not sitting on a shelf in a producer's office being shelved because it's good. It's documented. It's history. So when somebody wants to come back and find it, it's yours, and it's got you associated with it. I think there's a lot of value in that too.
I love that. In the end, weighing everything, I'm going to always vote positive for social media. I'll vote positive for Spotify. I'll vote positive for all those things because of that.
Better not.
I think it's on us now though to figure out how to monetize it, how to do creative things to make money. You know, it's if you're gonna make a physical release, it can't just be a generic CD that you print 1,000 of. You got to do something creative with it to make it worthwhile. I think there's a lot of ways that haven't even really been explored yet for creative people to, the whole concept of Patreon and things like that. Of like, here's somebody that I really like. Here's a couple bucks a month.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, like this person's they're paying their rent just because of this one thing. I think those types of things, like, hopefully will start to catch a foothold. And I know they still haven't yet. People aren't used to that whole subscription thing. But I really hope that concept of and I've thought about it for years. The idea of subscription, the idea of a band accepting $2 a month from a person, which most people piss away before they even or finish their second cup of coffee in the morning. $2, nothing. They have tons of app subscriptions now that are throwing $2 away. So if you get $2 a month from somebody, that's $24 a year. If you record one album a year, you're making what, $10, $15? So you've already like made more money, and you're getting it consistently. So this whole idea of like consistent money and the idea of like, okay, anybody can buy this for, some of this stuff's expensive. It's a few $1,000s, but yeah, you gotta.
Oh no, we're good.
But anybody can make the content these days. Anybody can do it. If you want to, you can do it. So that whole idea of like just hopefully the world will catch up with that. I like software these days. I've noticed like video and audio editing software. They're all going to subscriptions. Yeah. Like instead of having to spend like several $100s on this, like now you just spend $20 a month and you just subscribe to it.
Yeah.
So
and more user-based. What do they call it? Like community-ware, where you've got a lot of people working to make it better. It's nice to see it heading that direction, because I think one of the things that comes up when you talk about Patreon, one, I'm terrified because I don't want to be embarrassed. Like tossing up a Patreon account, like who the? Oh, I don't think. Anyway.
But it's the way things used to occur. I mean,
right? So that's that old mindset.
Creatives used to exist because of patronage.
Right, and so we're coming back around.
That's how composers used to live. Like they could get up in the morning and compose because somebody
they had a patron.
They had a patron. They had somebody like helping them make their bologna sandwiches every day at noon. And this is not a glamorous existence. Like whoever thinks that we have money is like totally wrong. Like whatever things you have, I can't imagine that. Like you've gone into debt for these things. I've sacrificed. I can't tell you what I've sacrificed to have the things I've got to do the things I do. Like from playing bass to being able to record. I don't have the greatest stuff in the world, but at the same time I try to do the best I can with it because I wanna do the best I can. But yeah, it's that's how people used to exist, and so I hope it does come back around.
It is coming back around, thankfully.
Crowdfunding, that whole concept. I think.
Well, and we had an idea that I think has come to fruition. Somebody tossed it out there, which is like an online tip jar. So if every musician has their own webpage and they've got a little tip jar, anybody that stops by, be like, toss a couple, click $5 in the tip jar for. Wait on that shirt design or something like that. That's pretty much Patreon. It's just a little less formal.
Yeah.
But that brings us to universal basic income. That's the other extreme of if everyone is allowed to just realize their creative potential, it would require this not having to go waste 40 hours under fluorescent lights.
Yeah.
Which I think would be it'd be really cool. I think we're headed that direction. I don't see why we're not already there. I think if we are the wily, tricky little critter that runs the planet, why aren't we all living the good life already? It's fascinating that we don't.
You have to hustle. I mean, it's a hustle.
Sure.
No matter what you do. Like I wish I could just play music. Really what I would love to do is play bass. That's what I do.
All the time.
And like when it comes to recording and things like that, I would love to just do the things that I do.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, I like the process of doing this. So,
but you're producing.
So why not also use that to bring forth income, which is not a lot. I do the location recording thing. You do a couple jobs a month, maybe if you're lucky.
Yeah.
You do a couple jobs a month if you're lucky. You do a few gigs a week if you're lucky. You figure out all those little things that you can kind of, it's like the whole multiple streams of income thing. It's super important. If you want to not, I've done it. I worked a day job I played music for years, got a day job, did that for years, quit it, played music, got in a situation, it's like got another day job, and just really a great job. I had a great job. Was paid well to do what I did. Was for the most part pretty well respected. Just the whole idea of there were at least 3 or 4 hours a day every day where I was doing absolute bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least 3 to 4. Sometimes a lot more than that, where I was like, fuck.
Most people who work in an office do 3 hours of work a day, and they're there for 10 to 12 hours.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like, with this, I come in and I'll do 3 hours of work, and then I'll go do something else.
Yeah.
And then I'll come back and I'll do 3 hours.
And at the end of every one of those 3 hours, you're like, stuff.
I've gotten things done. I've concentrated. I've gotten it done. And sometimes it might be 2.5. But when I hit that point, I know when I'm at that point of like, stop.
Yeah, find something else.
Go home and garden.
Right.
That's when I go home and prune the fucking garden, and wash the dishes.
Perfect timing.
I keep the house clean. So when woman gets home at night, it's all good and go. So it's like just picking my few hours to, I try to practice the bass 30 minutes a day. Just 30 minutes if I can, but I got to find those 30 minutes.
Right.
It's like sometimes it's in the morning, sometimes it's not, but they're always there. I just got to find them. Mm-hmm. And not let them slip by.
Yeah, and finding ways to buy our time back, buying our health back, and buying our time back seem to be big topics these days, and how we're able to manage that. And like you were saying, even if somebody else is footing the bill, to a certain extent, I think there still needs to be this urge to be productive, and I think finding ways to be productive within communities is where we're going to have to turn to next for a lot of this transition into automation, AI and all that stuff that's coming down the pike. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
I think community is going to get us around a lot of that, which brings us back to music and producing stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Community is wow. It's. I think it's one of the biggest things that we overlook.
Yeah.
And I'm bad about it. Like I don't. I'm very reclusive at home. I don't interact with my neighbors a lot, but I know them. I know my neighbors. I know their names. I know my neighbors. I know their names. Yeah. I know my neighbors. I know their names.
They're not calling you for barbecuing in the backyard.
No, we wave at each other. We talk, but it's like we all pretty much keep to ourselves. But the idea of taking care of your community, those who are less fortunate, fostering the younger creatives, I've been out of my day job for almost a year. One of the goals that I haven't accomplished yet that I really want to, I'm teaching lessons right now, but I want to get more into, there's a community music school here in Pensacola.
Very cool.
Yeah, the Pensacola Community Music School, and it's grown out of a few other organizations over the past few years, but it's something that I hope to, I know some of the people that are involved. It's something I want to contribute more to, because they essentially provide music lessons for kids that wouldn't otherwise have them.
And side note, I need Rick's number for community gardens, and I want to get to know these people for community music program. I would love to hear those stories.
Yeah.
Sounds awesome.
It really is.
Teaching kids music is like, ding!
It's something that, like, there's a couple ideas that I've had in that area that I've wanted to really involve my time in. And unfortunately, time and money are the same thing. And when you are a struggling, creative person, it's hard to give your time away a lot of the time. So you have to pick and choose. Right now, I'm picking and choosing. That's an area that's on my mind, though, right there. Homeless families, children, music. Those are the two things that I want to involve myself in more than anything else. In terms of community, I think there's ways that the things that I do, the things that the people that I know do, can feed into that and help those things like tremendously.
Well, you mentioned the homeless community, and so just to take a hard left here, because I know Pensacola has some rather interesting laws in regards to people who don't have
it's been very contentious.
Tons of money.
Yeah.
That are plainly despicable, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But so tell me more about your involvement in the homeless community.
I don't have any formal.
No,
not as of this time. Other than handing a few bucks to anybody when I can. That's really
because it's gotten crazy here in Pensacola. Like they arrested some guy for handing out food. For feeding people.
I didn't hear that. I know that they tried to pass an ordinance against busking, essentially.
What the? Seriously?
Yeah.
Try. You say tried. I trust they failed.
Well, it was one of those things that was kind of passed and repealed. It's pretty ridiculous. I mean, for one thing, they're costing the city lots of money because they're it's just there's so much legal precedent for these things to not exist that for them to even try some of these things, it's kind of silly. But there's been this fight in downtown Pensacola for the last, I'd say, 10 years to really turn it around. It used to be after 5 p.m. the whole downtown area went to sleep, except for a quarter on a couple nights a week. Now it's a legitimate. That's growing every year, and if they want a fine dining restaurant, they don't want the homeless people hanging around. Sorry, that's the way it fucking is. We have homeless people. We have to do something else about it. So they've been going about it from that back door of it's a nuisance. Let's outlaw it. Let's figure out how we can make it really difficult for these people to exist here. Rather than say, hey, let's figure out what we can do to help these people so that they, instead of being, on the street corner begging for food at 9 p.m. on a Friday night, they're sleeping somewhere comfortably.
Whereas we could have followed the good example of everybody else that's done reasonable work in handling the problem, spent half as much money as our campaign to undermine these people's humanity, and probably save some lives just by taking care of them.
They encourage people not to give money to the homeless. They have these ridiculous parking meters set up downtown that you're supposed to not this guy that's asking for money, you're not supposed to give it to him. You're supposed to turn around and put it in this parking meter so it will be distributed more appropriately to the homeless community. So,
oh my God!
I can't imagine something more. If you're in a place where those exist, you can see a homeless person. You can stop and look around and see a homeless person.
I'm going to find one.
Go
of these
fucking
things.
Give them their money. Yeah, they're all over downtown. You'll see them all over downtown Pensacola.
Oh man!
So
I'm about to become an investigative journalist.
I fortunately know some people who are extremely active in the homeless community here in Pensacola who do things daily. Far more than I could ever imagine doing. Who I have tremendous respect for, I would love to be more involved in that. Again, it's something that I aspire to do, but like most people, I just it's something that I put off until I have time. So I'm hoping to get around to that.
Man.
But those are concerns, in terms of our, we talk about community. I think that giving children anything positive is beautiful. So children and music is something that I can see myself being hugely involved in. And then just homelessness in general, homeless families though, I mean, of course, homeless children, homeless women. There's a shelter in my neighborhood that has been open for the last few years that only opens during the cold months for women and children. And for years, when I would go to work in the morning, I would drive by there as people were leaving. And so you would see these women pushing strollers away from this homeless shelter in the morning. It's like they can't be there during the day. They're going to probably come back that night. But man, if that doesn't fucking, if that doesn't make you think about things, about what's important and what's not, in terms of the big picture. It's like,
and there's so much out of sight, out of mind that goes on these days. I hope that will be that's proving to be one of the great advantages of the information age. And we've seen social media in very extreme circumstances. The Arab Spring was the first example of social media helping to enable, this thing to change just by showing it out.
You seen that documentary on Netflix?
I don't think so.
The Square, I believe is what it's called.
Oh, Tiananmen Square?
No, it's about
Tiananmen
it's about the Arab Spring. It's
because there was a square in Egypt.
Yeah,
that was I can't remember the name of it.
Neither can I, but that's it goes in depth about that whole event, the days leading up to. I mean, it wasn't really one event. It was kind of just that time when that occurred. But they talk about that, how social media really brought everybody together in that respect. I think that's a beautiful thing.
Well, and that's what a lot of the Kurzweil and all those guys had said, is that the access to information is what's going to do it. Like you can lead a horse to water all day long, but you can't force people to change their opinion. But when you put a mountain of evidence in front of them, sooner or later they come around. And so that's what I think is going to drive this singularity. There will be the tipping point will be when it's harder to be ignorant. When it's harder to be informed, or it's harder to not be informed than it is to be informed. That's going to be the tipping point. And I think after seeing some of the things that I've seen on social media in the last few days, it is a stark reminder that the smartest people around, Kurzweil in particular, when they started talking about the time frames for these transitions of this new singularity and consciousness and information and all that good stuff, we are in the middle of that. We're in the plus or minus, the beginnings of the plus or minus and predictions of when that was going to start to happen. And so people have pushed it off. Well, I think we're in the thick of it, man.
There's so much disinformation though on the internet. How do you how do you account for that though? There's people that swear by the information being correct that are not swearing by the correct information.
Yeah, it doesn't mean it's good information.
That's what worries me more than anything is.
Well, it gets worse before it gets better. But I think what's going on here, I've thought about this, and I think because we have these built-in mechanisms where when you hear bullshit, you know bullshit most of the time.
Yeah.
When somebody coughs a lie at you, you can tell. For the most part. This is something that we learn as children, because when we get conflicting messages between the words and what somebody's doing in their physical presence, it raises signals.
Yeah.
We're all familiar with this. And kids are expert liars. There's no doubt about it. This is stuff that we're pre-programmed to do. Language is the tool, rhetoric is the means that we manipulate it, and we're all born with knowing how to manipulate it. It's not some fancy thing. So we take that and we allow people to forget that it's part of the puzzle, and that it's okay to be able to manipulate people as long as you do it honestly. Like, it's an ancient argument that goes back and forth about when is it responsible and irresponsible to be manipulative. But it's part of something that we're all doing, and I think people are more and more coming around to calling bullshit. And so part of this process of sorting through information online is there has to be a ton of crap so everybody can figure out what crap is. And then the crap starts to fade off after a while. The filters become better and better and better. And then there are lots of theories that talk about the way that we process information in real time, and we have these we've spent a lifetime of building up these catalogs of things that we use to filter out BS in real time. But we haven't done that with the computer systems. We haven't done that with Facebook. And so there's this steep learning curve of quit citing shitty information and think for yourself. But that's a long way to go around and say that I think we're watching intellectual evolution in real time because we have positioned ourselves against something smarter than us, and now we have to catch up. And so sooner or later it's gonna be a survival thing and not an entertainment thing. And I think that's where we're at now, because there is so much bad information that it's becoming a survival thing. If you want to use this information to inform who you are, you got to be real wary about it. It's just a long way to say exactly what you were saying, but there you go. Sorry. That was my run around the mountain. She'll be coming around the mountain. She'll come.
Yeah, but I'm with you there, man. It's really if you want it, it's there. Right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like I don't know. I'm not convinced yet that there's any sort of grander, paradigm shift yet. I don't know. I know individually, if you're looking for something, you can find it.
Yeah.
To me, that's the thing that's most amazing these days, is that like if you want to find out about anything. I changed my oil for the first time the other day. I've just never done it in my life, but it took me 30 seconds to search a video on YouTube.
Yep.
It took me 8 minutes of watching that video on YouTube to know exactly what to go to the store and buy, and to come home and fucking do it.
Yeah.
When I first got a car, before the internet was really around, you couldn't really do that. You'd have to go buy some step-by-step video that some dude in Ohio did.
Click and clack put together.
It's amazing. I know this is just some random dudes. Like it's like it amazes me continually, like what useful information you can find. Way through the bullshit, there were 4 other tutorial videos about how to do it, but after watching 2 minutes of each of them, I figured, okay, no, I found the one that was like, this one, like you said, it felt right. It wasn't like this guy there was no shuck and jive. It was like, just, okay, this is how you change your oil in this car, this model car.
Boom.
And so there it was. Gardening, anytime I want to learn something, pretty specifically, I can find it within a matter of a couple seconds. This whole information age thing, like to me, that's the revolution. It's going to become more of a personal thing where people can really figure out, like, anything you want to learn, it's there. Like everything I've learned about audio recording, I've pretty much learned on the internet.
Right. So there is the library at Alexandria.
It's there. It's like the everything in the world. I think one of the biggest lessons we can teach our children these days is that if you're looking for information, it's absolutely amazing to me. Exactly. The grandest library in the world is we all have it in our pocket. And if you want to know something, to ask a question and to leave it unanswered in your own mind these days is just pure stupid.
What a waste.
Like if you have any sort of question about anything, I've got the Merriam-Webster dictionary app on my phone. I don't let a word go by me anymore that I don't try to figure out what it means.
No,
it might not stick with me like over the long period of time, but I'm going to at least look at it and understand it at that moment in the context that I need to know it in. Because I think it's just and again, I don't know if it, going back to what we said back 20 minutes ago, I just enjoy doing that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it makes me better or worse or anything. I don't care, but I enjoy that idea of like gaining something every day, gaining some information every day, gaining some sort of like, okay, today I'm going to do this and I'm going to figure out how to do this thing a little better than I did it yesterday.
Just a little better. That reminds me of playing video games as a kid, just playing the same level over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do this until I do it better.
Until I figure out. And I wasn't the gamer that my son is. My son is like, yesterday we had that day where I had some things to do in the morning. I was up here for a while. I got home and we were like, are we gonna go do something? And the whole family was home, and we were all just like,
we're right here.
And so he literally like laid on the couch and played a video game all fucking day until he figured out how to get by the shit he was trying to figure out. And,
before they made cheat codes,
you know what I mean?
Gamer magazines.
Yeah, and he's of course tabbing over, going to Google and finding shit and figuring things out. But at the same time, I don't have a problem with him playing video games. I don't have a problem with that resourcefulness of figure that problem out, figure it out.
I can remember having to wait on GamePro to come out. God.
Oh, what was that?
That was the game magazine. That would tell you the cheat code and all that, like how to figure it out. No, Lord of mercy. Back in the day, it was a video Sorry, I'm just compiling this whole story in my head. It's such a great topic, but remembering back to just all day long to get that one level, to find that one sword or whatever it was. Sorry, I hadn't been a gamer in a long time. So
I never did that, man. I
how about as a musician, learning a lick or like learning a solo? Did you ever have one of those moments where you're like, this is it until it's accomplished?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Well, we were talking about like childhood's lost. I'm focusing on this one thing.
I didn't start playing bass until well into high school, and I didn't really get serious about it until like even later than that. So it was the one thing that I could say I could really apply that whole mentality to would be skateboarding.
Really?
Like when I was in high school, I skateboarded. So the whole idea of like, I'm gonna figure out how to kickflip. I'm gonna go home from school today, and I'm gonna bust my fucking shins for
blood
hours.
And sweat. Yeah.
And I'm gonna figure out how to do this trick. And so that was probably the one thing in my life that I really just was like, okay, I'm gonna figure out how to do this, and spend hours doing that one thing over and over again. But I know that mentality and that discipline carried over into other things, no doubt. But that was at that age when you're like, okay, I've got no social life. I'm just gonna, after school, I'm going to do this. Yeah. That's what I was doing. I was never like a great skateboarder by any means, but that was like my thing during those years. I loved it. Very
cool. I think I was just always too wounded to be a skateboarder. Like between getting run over and all that good stuff. I remember being around it, but I never was not lazy enough for whatever reason. I guess I was riding a bike. I was riding a bike more than I was skateboarding, so maybe that was where I picked it. But I divulged on that tangent because riding a bike was a lot safer for me than being on a skateboard. I probably had a couple, like one too many of those shin accidents, and was like, screw this.
See, the idea of like
sticking with it.
I did the freestyle BMX thing for a little while, but the whole idea of having this big bike, to me, that scared me more than, okay, I've got this little skateboard, I can just throw that thing out of the way, and I'm all good. But this big bike that can fall on me, or I can get all tied up in, that always scared me more than a skateboard. I didn't last in that world very long at all.
No, we used to.
And that world's far more expensive than skateboards. Like I had the cheapest bike you could possibly find. I was like, you look at these like good bikes are like $1,000, but you can get a good skateboard for $100.
Yeah.
So it was like no doubt that was far more achievable in my world.
We were, man, I don't know. We did some pretty ridiculously crazy things on bikes. I guess mountain bikes is just where it landed for us. But Tony Hawk, like I remember the surf, like coming over to Gulf Shores and watching kids surf, and thinking, yeah, and then just sucking so bad at it. It's never happened for me. But those are all good memories, man. Those are all good memories of doing things. And the reason I wanted to delve into that is because there's the risk reward is different than it used to be. There used to be blood, sweat, and tears involved.
Yeah.
And now the consequences are more time lost than anything else.
Well, we don't, kids these days don't have the... and I know it's the world. We don't give them the opportunity for personal responsibility that I know that I had when I was a kid. I have conversations about all the time about how funny it is. Like when I was 8 years old, I was riding my bike, 2 miles to school.
Me too. Yeah.
And I was riding, a neighborhood or two over to my friend's house. 8, 9 years old.
Yeah.
By the time I was, in middle school and high school, we were riding all over fucking town. The thought of letting my son ride this bike a mile from my house now at 14, almost 15, I'm like, fuck no, you're not doing that. And it's it's the radius at which we let our children gravitate from their home has changed a lot over the years. And I don't know if the world's gotten more dangerous, or if it's just our perception, or if we're just getting a little more, just scared of things. I don't know, but
that's a good question.
I know I used to, cross a big highway when I was, 9 years old. I had to go to school, and we had to cross a major highway to get to school, and you had to wait for the red light. You had to watch the crosswalk, and you had to wait for it to turn green, and you had to go. Those are things we learned because it's like, if you don't do it like this, you're gonna fucking die.
Right.
The car's gonna fucking run over you. This
right.
is how you do it, and you learn those things early. And I don't know. Like, it's weird for me to even think about these days of letting. And I've got a child. You don't have a child.
No.
You don't have a child. I have a child.
No.
So
I am a child. There are people in my family that are responsible in doing adult things.
Oh,
I am not one of them.
Well, it's one of those things that when you get
knock on wood. Who knows?
It's a wonderful thing.
I could have one show up tomorrow.
It's a beautiful thing. If it happens, embrace it, enjoy it.
I definitely.
But the whole concept of
me would be dangerous.
Like, oh, dude, it's really odd to look at yourself in another person. And I don't know that I think that's the one unexplainable thing about being a parent, especially if your child is very much like kind of you. Like from the time my son was young until now, like I look at him and it's like, oh my god. It's just weird. It's very strange. But it's also weird. I think that idea of like just not want anything bad to happen to him. It's like, oh, I don't want you to cross that road because it's dangerous.
Yeah.
But I used to do it, and it's a hard thing to keep in check. It's like, that he can gauge his own. He knows.
Mm-hmm.
He knows. But I want to protect him always. I'm scared to let him do things that we used to do.
Yeah.
That whole personal responsibility thing, though, like we really, it was different for us when we were younger.
It was. It really was. That's when it's time to be home. Before cell phones and all that good stuff. I was born in 1980, so I'm right there in a very interesting generational spot in that I was one of those people that got to grow up without a screen, but was young enough to fully adapt to technology. So we're a cute little group. They've come up with all kinds of cute little names for us, but we're an interesting little group. But I think I'm big into rites of passage, like with all the pot that I smoke and all the things that I have found that help me with my mental illnesses and my personal issues, anger issues going way back. So finding things that have helped me and having lived through some rather extreme events is something that's valuable. I totally forgot where I was going with that. But it gets us into liminal spaces and life-altering events and coming of age. Like, we don't have... This is where I was going. We were the rites of passage and assuming these personal responsibilities the way that other cultures, previous cultures, other civilizations have that carry weight and carry consequences. Specifically, the ones like... doing altered states of consciousness, be it from chemicals, it's always from chemicals, but be it ingested or just induced. And one of them is pain. You see lots of rites of passage that involve pain, and you see lots of rites of passage that involve coming to terms with, ego death. Mushrooms is one that's used a lot with teenagers across lots of cultures and lots of different places, specifically because it helps teach people about ego. Marijuana is not something that's used a lot medicinally for shamanic purposes. with some odd exceptions, but it's not. I guess it's more accurate to say it's not used in the same way that psilocybin's used. It's a whole other thing. But we saw that in ancient cultures. It was like, here's this monumental thing that you're old enough to come to terms with now, to go through, to experience, that is all about dealing with yourself and coming of age, and in some very real ways that have real ramifications. I think all that shit's gone out the window now. Like, with social media and how safe we've made our world, be it for better or for worse. We just don't have many of those. Not that I'm advocating you should go out and see how high you can get. Like, do it. Find a shaman. If you don't have a shaman in your life, go find a shaman. But that's not your buddy that sells pot, by the way. That is not a shaman. It's
not your buddy. The pot is the shaman.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, we don't, and that really is about the closest we have anymore. Though is people having personal experiences that they through what, I don't know. I don't know what makes somebody have an experience with a drug that leads them to become more aware of things, or makes them become more of a, I think, druggy loser in society. I don't know. I mean, you know what I'm saying though? Like there's people that can have that experience and just party on it. Like, I know people that will party on LSD.
I'm not talking about the partying aspect of it specifically here. I'm talking about the type of, you know.
But that's what I mean is that other aspect of it, of that
people abusing it.
That you can have that same experience.
Yeah.
And interpret it different ways. Like, I don't know what causes one person to be able to.
I think it comes down to the lack of shaman. I get what you're saying. Like, how is it that someone can take a positive versus someone being able to take a negative? Exactly. And I think it comes down to the shaman, because some of us.
But what is that for people, though? Is that,
I think for some people, reflection can be a good shaman, and we can go back and we can learn. For those of us who didn't have experienced people around us, I think we become our own shamans, or the plant becomes the shaman. And this is very specific. We're talking about not synthetic drugs here. Like, there's no value in my mind, outside of a medical circumstance, that anybody should be experimenting with synthesized drugs. Nah. Plants, on the other hand, have a lot to teach us, I think. Plant therapy is a whole other thing. But people who smoke pot and have no idea how to relate that to their reality are going to be at a loss to figure out why that's valuable. So the best example of how to do that responsibly right now with our own culture is the MAPS program. And MAPS is Rick Doblin and these guys that are using MDMA to assist PTSD. But the way this goes down is they've got psychotherapists acting as the shaman. So these people will drop MDMA in a clinical environment. They'll sit on the couch, and then they'll have a psychotherapist there with them to talk and to discuss. So they've got an anchor. So you've got someone to guide you through this and help explain, or to help you understand that process, not understand, but to help you process the things that you want to process in that space. And that's, without that, you're just kind of guessing at what can I glean from this meaning-wise. But in a cathartic event, in a liminal space, in a rite of passage, we always have some safety net versus having to figure it out on your own. And I think that's where people lose it, when they don't have. We've gotten to the point where you get drugs from drug dealers as opposed to shamans now, so there's no one to hold your hand through that experience. And the more graduated experience you have, the less likely you are to put together the real benefits of it, which is one of the reasons that people talk all the time about how they didn't realize the benefits of something until they'd abused it, until they'd used it so much that they abused it. And I think that becomes a matter of perspective, which is what most of those things, which I think is what all drugs teach us, is that there's another perspective, and I'm going to force you to experience it. Because that's where we get truth, I think. It's from a collective of perspectives. The more perspectives you have, the closer to capital T truth you can get.
to know that just to be aware that there is another perspective.
Yeah,
I think it's like a hugely powerful thing to become aware of.
Yeah,
that there is.
That's the value in it, I think.
Yeah, and I would agree. I mean, that's with pot, with marijuana, that's always been my biggest love of it, is the perspective shift. It's like there's this perspective shift that allows you to, at least for me, and I think for a lot of people, like you can shed some of the things that you are constantly focused on, and they seem to get out of the way.
Yeah.
And then you can focus on whatever it is. For me, typically it's during the creative process, playing music or doing something else creative, that I enjoy it the most, because it's like, okay, now it just seems to like part the waters.
Yeah.
And then there's the thing that you want to focus on the most, and that deserves to be focused on more so. But yeah, that's an interesting perspective, man. That people are just kind of like floundering through it. I guess they're giving it without any meaning, or without any perspective that it can even be a learning process.
Yeah.
I think so many people are even oblivious to the fact that there can be things gleaned from a psychedelic experience, or I don't know if being stoned is a psychedelic experience per se, but it kind of is. It's definitely putting you into a...
Well, and what you choose to do in the space, too.
Yeah.
Like, there's a difference between escapism and experimentation.
Sure.
So intent has a lot to do with it.
Intent is everything to me, with everything in the world. Like, I think it really defines...
What you bring to it.
What you bring to anything. Like, it comes down, like, if you break everything down and trim it all down, what the thing at the bottom is the intent. Like, why? Like, what is the purpose? But yeah, again, like with somebody who is unassisted going into a psychedelic experience, like, where do you find a shaman? Like who or what is that for? You know what I mean? Like,
there's no. I don't think there's a sign. There's no guide on how to find that.
Yeah.
And
so
I think a lot of it is comfort, like, because you can, like you said, in some instances, the medicine can be the shaman, or whatever the chemical can be the shaman, and in some instances, it's just finding a guru. It's that the buoy in Storm, that one reference point, that becomes the shaman, I think, and some people can step into that role readily, and then some people luck into that role for other people. But going looking for it, I don't think you don't go looking for a shaman.
Shaman always is it a person? Is it an idea?
It can be anything.
It can be anything.
It can be anything. I think it's the.
I've always been curious about that, like the concept of a concept being the thing which kind of grounds you, or.
It's like the concept of a master. Like, can you teach yourself martial arts? Sure. You can read some books, and you can get an idea, and you can teach yourself martial arts, and the more you learn, the more in-depth it can be, but it'll never be the same relationship as to martial arts as you would get through a sensei or through a teacher. And so in a lot of ways, that's what a shaman is. Like, you could generalize it, I guess, and say it's just a spiritual leader. That term's really dead. I think spirituality is, maybe we'll be the generation that killed the term spiritual. I hope not. But
you don't like it? You don't like that term, or you just?
I do like it. I think it's just getting beat into the ground because it's
pretty played out.
Yeah, there's so many things that people mean when they say that it just muddies the water. I think people are going to get away from it and use more specific terms, like, as opposed to explaining that they have a relationship with something that is not our readily available senses. I think people will start talking about what that relationship is, as opposed to this general, definition. And maybe that's where we're going. Instead of this vague spirituality, we're moving towards, well, how are you spiritual? Becoming the more pertinent question.
Kind of reminds me of one of my least favorite words and concepts in music is genre.
Do tell.
Well, just the idea of like a style of music versus something that it to me it robs things of the cultural thing that they are. Like to think about Latin music as a genre of music or funk as a genre, and I mean more in terms of like approaching it from a musician. Like there's people that will wonder, can you play funk or can you play Latin music? Like it's a genre that you should be able just to academically learn, rather than. I guess spirituality to me is kind of that same thing. It's like kind of become this thing that like the whole concept is gone. Like it's devoid of anything that it really is. It's now this kind of thing that's become this academic thing that's no longer got any spirituality. It's got to have a root in something. It's got to have a root in. I mean, there can be religious spirituality, there can be philosophical spirituality, there can be a lot of these different things that can cause a person to become spiritual. But I think much like genres in music, it's just gotten to the point where it's just gotten academic and really. The actual intent and why is kind of given way to the thing.
Yeah.
And
how do you feel about the term style instead of genre?
I don't know.
I mention that because I think it ties back to martial arts in that there are styles of martial arts. There are, the term genre to me seems. From the outside, we're trying to lump all these things together, which is ridiculous because we know at the edges there's overlap.
Yeah.
And what you're actually talking about is a technique. You're talking about something that comes out of a specific context, which is how martial arts work. They come out of these contexts that, well, Kung Fu, very polite. There are not a whole lot of jiu-jitsu practitioners in Kung Fu tournaments. And so you get this very specific refined thing.
Yeah, I think there's
style.
I think there's things to be. There's a way to break things down and learn from them.
But they all overlap.
As a martial artist, as a musician, as a painter, as a whatever. There's a way to break down these schools of thought, these styles, these genres, whatever we want to call them. There's a way to break them down and to take them in and learn from them. But if you do so devoid of their cultural references, if you don't also
context,
if you don't also explore that, I think you really you never. My opinion, you just don't get to the meat of it. You don't really get to. You don't really get to the. I would find it hard to believe that somebody could really pull it off without getting to the cultural context of it.
What do you know about mariachi music if you've never been in a mariachi band?
I mean,
you could be a badass mariachi guitar player, but if you've never played with other people that do that,
I can tell you a lot about. I went through a Cuban music phase. The whole idea of Cuban music, Latin music, I loved it. I had friends that were into it. We were into it. We found some guys who were legit. They were, one from Puerto Rico, one from Cuba. They were legit. Everything I thought I knew, didn't fucking matter. Like, I wasn't playing it correctly. Like, I missed everything about it. Like, I'd learned everything about it. I knew exactly where, I knew, where the beats were supposed to lie. I knew how knew how it all worked. Musically in my head, I knew how it all worked. I could break it all down. I could play the shit. But, like, one of the guys, his name was Rene from Cuba. Beautiful human being. Rene would play the maracas, and like I used to think you'd pick up a maraca and you'd shake it, right? Like, you don't play the maracas. Like, there's nobody who says that they play the maracas. Well, like, he played the maracas, and immediately, as soon as he would pick him up, like it was like this huge smile would come over his face, and he would just start dancing and playing. And it was like there was so much education in that. It was like, man, he's not playing the maracas. He's breathing life into something that didn't exist like a minute ago. Now there's this living, breathing thing that's none of us. It's this thing that exists in the room now. Yeah. That is, it's comprised of joy, and it's this thing, this intangible thing that now exists in the room that didn't exist before. And people that can bring that into a room are just, to me, that's the most amazing thing in the world. Like I love musicians who can bring that into a room. Hell yeah. It's. There's a lot of. We're fortunate. There's a lot of guys around here that can do that. Owen Finley, one of my favorite people in the world.
Love it.
Last Sunday night at Vinyl Music Hall, Owen plays a bass solo, and it was the highlight of the night. Like everybody in the room is smiling and laughing at the end of Owen's bass solo, and who cares what he played on the bass? Like I don't even remember what he played on the bass. I just remember at the end of it, I was happy, and that's something that not a lot of people can do. And we're fortunate. There's a lot of people around here that are really, really good at that. We have a lot of musicians around here that just bring joy into the room. Had a great conversation with Jake Peavy the other night about this. We were talking about Colonel Bruce Hampton, and that was the lesson.
Hang on. Before we get into time. Oh yeah, we're fine. Just in one of the transition. Sometimes the transition gets clippy. So you were talking with Jake Peavy about the Colonel.
Yeah, that was he had mentioned that was one of the lessons he had learned from Bruce. Was he had spoken to Bruce about what music was like. Yeah. What is this thing? And my fortunate time that I got to spend with Bruce, it was one of the greatest lessons I took from it, which I still try to grasp every day, was that what music is just, it's joy in the room. It's just bringing joy to the room. It's ego is the exact opposite of that. It's when we're really concerned about what we're doing and what we're playing and the notes we just messed up and the chord progression we just or this awesome thing we just did, this awesome lick we just played. You look up and you realize how many people you really affected with that, and it's probably the two guys in the back with folded arms who were the other bass players there, who just looked up and didn't smile or anything, but like noticed that you did something.
Right.
Versus that moment when you're just like, okay, the whole band just exploded and everybody in the crowd just exploded. What was that all about? Well, that had nothing to do with that other thought at all.
Right.
And so that's just that whole concept of bringing joy, man. That idea is. I strive for that constantly. Like it's like, and it goes back to the intent thing. What is your intent? Why are you doing it? Are you trying to show off, be fancy, or
usually?
Yeah. For me, yeah, it's a hard habit to break. It's like and it's an onion. It's multi layers. You break down one layer of your ego, and you get to another core, and you break down one, and you get to another.
I was thinking about it from another standpoint. Like I keep coming back to the martial arts thing because I've been watching a lot of jiu-jitsu competitions, and so this idea of a winner and a loser it's a perspective thing, because the greater picture is the loop, like you say. And so it's not a question of who's winning or losing. It's how intense can we make this cycle. And once that cycle reaches a fevered pitch and the room explodes and the band explodes and everybody's having this moment, you can't lose because nobody can win. That's where I'm trying to get to. Like how yeah,
it's a collective.
It comes back around. Yeah.
It's a collective thing. I've had moments on stage with bands that musically were amazing. Mm-hmm. That the room did nothing. I've had times on stage where the band was less than stellar, but the people in the crowd were ready for something, and so they were grabbing a hold of whatever they could get. Yeah. I've been in rooms where both of those things intersected, and it's just pure joy. That's when when you want it.
I love that analogy. the pure joy analogy.
It's really like that. That's when it all kind of happens. That's what it's all about. And with any style of music, that's, you know, people can bring that in different ways, which is, to me, what is amazing about artists. Like, you listen to somebody like Thelonious Monk, it's kind of heady music. You know what I mean? It's not, you know, it's not what you're typically going to put on at a keg party or something. You know,
right.
But there are these moments where it's just like you just laugh. It's just like there's just so much like the just pure joyous energy about it.
How do you even come up with that?
Exactly, and it happens. You know, a lot of people associate that energy climax with jam band music, because that's typically what that music feeds upon, is that energy kind of lift. A lot of times that music gets devoid of, or not devoid, but it starts to lack some of the musical sophistication that you would like. If, you know, sometimes it's just about that. Okay, let's play a solo and build the volume.
Yeah.
Which is a very easy trick to employ, and it works. It feels good.
Yeah.
It still feels good.
Three-chord stadium rock is three-chord stadium rock
great,
for a reason.
It's great. It's great. And you know, it's a lot of jam bands in the world that exist on that like idea that they can go from nothing and then 10 minutes later they're up here, and it's you know, it's an energy and a volume lift. There's some people that can do that with a musical sophistication, though, that's amazing as well. Mm-hmm. It's in the end, though, it's all just about that experience of feeling that momentum shift. Why do people watch sports? They watch it for the momentum shift. It's that interception. Mm-hmm. It's that dropped pass. It's the momentum shift. That
Schadenfreude.
You know what I mean? Like, that's exactly what it's all about. So music, it's the same thing with music. It's about the momentum. It's about the energy. You want that energy shift to occur, and by whatever means necessary. If it occurs, it's going to feel good.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know, if it's Fish doing it or you know, Wayne Shorter, it feels good.
That payoff.
And you get that payoff in the end. You know, that's kind of what it's all about.
It's an awesome thing. I can't think of any bases we haven't covered. I would love to keep rambling, but I think we've pretty much encapsulated it.
Cool.
At an hour and a half.
Wow.
I feel like I've eaten up most of your evening. This has been wonderful for the little gray cells.
Wow.
Did I miss anything? Do you have any thoughts that you would want to add in closing?
No, I can't remember what all we talked about. So
that's a good solo. Then it's a really good solo. Well, then share the plugs with everybody. How can people hear your music and check out some of the stuff that you're doing?
Oh, well, right now...
give us the .coms.
.coms. Pensacola Audio Documentation.com. Building that. Currently, it's kind of dry at the moment, but you can also find it on Facebook and Instagram.
Nice.
Gigging in Mobile every Wednesday night with John Milham and Mr. Ben Jernigan.
Wednesday night. Where at?
At the Dolphin Street Blues Company.
What time?
9 p.m.
Until?
Yes.
You know, I do some stuff in Mobile on a Wednesday.
You do?
I do.
I know. That's why I was...
I'm going to come harass y'all.
Okay. Is yours later, earlier?
We usually start at it's earlier. It's earlier.
Cool.
Earlier. So I'll be able to, and if you guys are right down there, I'll walk over.
Come by.
I will.
It's been fun. Been doing that. I've been playing with John Hart a lot again lately. And
very cool.
Yeah, just plugging away, man. Playing music. There's a Pensacola band called Surrounder. I don't know if you've heard of them yet or not. We're we recorded their first record last year, and we're gonna start on their second here real soon.
Nice. Where are they? How have I not heard of them? I mean, there's lots of music I haven't heard of, but we know the same people. How have I not heard of this?
They're kind of in a little different scene than we normally kind of run with.
Do tell.
But they check them out. Surrounder.
Awesome. Anybody I know?
Mm.
No?
Nope.
Cool.
Nope.
New stuff.
Yep.
Love new stuff.
You'll dig it.
Let's see. Anything else?
Scam County. Everybody look out for that.
Oh yeah, that was the one I was going to ask you about. Scam County is this video that you're doing some video.
It's a
sound
sitcom. It's an actual sitcom.
Okay.
It's a sitcom pilot that some friends have been working on for years and years. And
I know I've seen them on Facebook.
Yep. Yep. They have a Facebook and Instagram, Scam County, which is kind of a play on Escambia County.
Boom.
It's going to be, we're working on the 30-minute pilot right now.
Nice.
In hopes to get it in some festivals and maybe eventually get picked up and actually have a full season of. They've got quite a bit plotted and written for a full season, so we'd like to carry it out. I'm doing the location audio right now. They're doing. I guess we've done five days of shooting so far. We're about halfway done with the first episode.
Cool.
And I'm excited about it, man. It's just regardless of what happens with it, it's just fucking amazing that people are like going back to technology.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody has an idea, and like you no longer have to have $100,000 to make a TV show. You can have a few friends with have a camera and a few things and make a fucking TV show. It's really amazing. So an amazing group of guys over here who've putting it together. I mean, it's legit, scripted. Everything is done as legit as it can be. So I'm pretty excited about it.
That sounds fucking amazing.
There's a real
Scam County.
Scam County. So we're check it out.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
Let's see. Is there anything else? I think I can't think of anything else.
Cool.
I think that pretty much does it. Thank you so much, Sean.
Thank you.
This has been a pleasure, man.
Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you
ramble.
having me.
Yeah.
So, until next time, ladles and jelly spoons, thanks for tuning in. And until then, truth, love, and peace.
Cool.